I went to pick up my 3-year-old son from kindergarten, but we encountered a mentally ill person taking revenge on society, waving a knife and slashing randomly. In order to protect my son, I was stabbed more than a dozen times and fell in a pool of blood. Edward sent the attacker to the police station and hired the best medical team to rescue us. Before being taken into the operating room, I anxiously asked about my son's condition. With red eyes, he told me that our son had lost too much blood and had died on the way here. I fainted from grief and forgot to mention that I was immune to anesthesia. When I just regained consciousness, I heard the conversation between Edward and the doctor. Mr. Edward, the child could clearly have been saved. Why did you give up the rescue? He's your own son, and he's only 3 years old. I never intended to let him live. His birth was a mistake in the first place, and he even dared to ask me for a birthday gift. Was he trying to get the company's inheritance rights? My child with Virginia will soon turn 18. I promised her that I would give the company to the child as an adult gift, and I will never let anyone compete with him for it. It turned out that the marriage I thought was happy was nothing but an endless hell. Since that's the case, I'll let them go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. The doctor looked at my abdomen, which was stabbed and covered in blood, and sighed. I just examined it. Madam is so severely injured. Fortunately, her uterus can still be saved, and she may have the chance to be a mother again in the future. Who gave you permission to save her uterus? Remove it immediately and make sure she can never get pregnant again. The doctor opened his eyes in shock and said urgently, Mr. Edward, you will hand over the company to Virginia's son in 3 days. Even if Madam gets pregnant in the future, it won't interfere with anything. She just lost her child, and now you want to remove her uterus. Is it really necessary to be so ruthless? Edward gently stroked my face, but the words he said were extremely heartless. Letting her give birth to that bastard was already my biggest mistake. I never expected that the bastard would actually dare to ask me for a birthday gift. He must be after the company's inheritance rights. I swore to Virginia that I wouldn't let anyone compete with our child for the family property, even though she married someone else back then. I must help them get rid of future troubles forever. The door of the operating room was knocked, and the man's slovenly voice was extremely harsh in the silent operating room. Mr. Edward, thank you for helping me forge the psychiatric appraisal and getting me released without charge. I've already helped you get rid of that little brat. What about the reward you promised me? I'll have someone transfer 5 million yuan to your account. Take the money and get out of Beijing immediately. Never show up in front of Shirley again. All right, let's start the operation quickly. I still have to accompany Virginia to pick up the customized gift for Devon. Oh, and remember to give more anesthesia. Don't let Shirley feel the pain. As the footsteps faded away, I closed my eyes tightly, gritted my teeth, and held back my tears. It turned out that that person wasn't really mentally ill at all. He was actually an executioner specially hired by my husband to reassure the woman he loved. My Dylan. He was only 3 years old, and on his birthday, he died in a murder carefully planned by his own father because of a trumped-up charge. My body is immune to anesthesia, and the cold medical instruments stirred inside my body, as if they were going to tear me apart. I fainted from the pain. When I opened my eyes again, Edward was looking at me with red eyes, his voice full of tenderness and concern. Shirley, you're finally awake. Does it still hurt? I've been waiting outside the operating room. You have no idea how scared I was. Losing Dylan is already the greatest pain of my life. If something happens to you, I won't want to live either. Shirley, the doctor said that your abdomen was stabbed so severely that it damaged your uterus, and you won't be able to have children in the future. But don't worry, I'll take care of you with my life. Being a Dink family isn't so bad either. I lowered my head and looked at my abdomen. The wound was sutured well, but the empty feeling inside reminded me that I had forever lost the qualification to be a mother. Where's Dylan? I asked blankly. Edward said guiltily. He's already been sent to the funeral parlor for cremation. The funeral will be tomorrow. Shirley, I'm sorry. It's my fault as a father for not protecting our child. My heart ached, but I didn't expose his lie. I looked at the bedside table. In an exquisite box, there was a longevity lock. Edward, today is Dylan's birthday, and we haven't bought a gift for the child yet. Let this longevity lock accompany him. I hope he will have a long life in his next life. Okay. Edward frowned slightly, almost imperceptibly, and said gently, Shirley, this is something a friend asked me to buy for his child. How can we take it away from others? After all, This is for a living person. Dylan won't need it. And he'll be sad. Besides, this material isn't valuable and isn't worthy of our Dylan. I've already asked someone to buy more things from the funeral supplies store and will burn them all for him. He won't be wronged in the afterlife. I didn't say anything, feeling extremely desolate inside. Having been a housewife for so long, Edward has forgotten that I used to be a sharp jewelry appraiser in the jewelry industry. The material used for that longevity lock is the most expensive variety of jadeite and is priceless. It has an exquisite design, engraved with the words, "Peace every year," carrying the infinite love of parents. For 2 whole months, I secretly saw Edward burying himself in the study, designing the pattern of the longevity lock bit by bit. I always thought that it was a birthday gift he wanted to give to Dylan. It turned out that in his heart, it was our mother and son who were truly unworthy. At my strong request, Edward helped me go through the discharge procedures and took me home. He refused the help of the nanny and took the initiative to wipe my body and wash my hair, carefully avoiding the wound on my abdomen. He even dried my hair himself, showing the utmost consideration as a husband. I used to be touched by his tenderness, but looking at the hideous wound on my stomach and thinking of Dylan's tragic death, I only felt desolation and numbness in my heart. Late at night, while Edward was asleep, I went to the study and logged into his cloud drive on the computer. The password was Virginia's birthday. There were tens of thousands of photos and videos stored in it, recording all the little details from the time Virginia was pregnant to the birth and growth of their child until now. In addition, there was a prepared share transfer agreement. In our 15-year marriage, Edward spent most of his time on business trips every year, pretending to be expanding the market. But in fact, he was accompanying Virginia and their child. It's ridiculous that I never suspected it. The WeChat on the lower right corner of the computer wasn't logged out. I clicked in, and the top chat group named, "A Loving Family of 3, made my heart hurt. In the past 18 years, Edward has given countless expensive gifts to Virginia and their child. Edward, Devin has just been born. How can he drive a Maserati? You're the only one who spoils him. By the way, I really like the sapphire necklace. Mwah. Edward, Devin is 3 years old today. The island you gave him has such a beautiful scenery. You'll arrive in the afternoon. Right. Devin can't wait to see his father." And these favors were things that I and Dylan had never experienced. I gave up my promising career prospects and married Edward at the age of 20, willingly being the woman behind him, accompanying him through thick and thin. I exhausted my body and couldn't get pregnant for a long time, and he seemed indifferent about it. I originally thought that he didn't want to put pressure on me and was grateful for his tolerance. In the 15th year of our marriage, I finally got pregnant. But Edward wasn't as happy as I had imagined. He just smiled symbolically. But when I saw the photo of him kissing Virginia's swollen belly with ecstasy, I realized that he already had a child with someone else. And my Dylan, in his eyes, was like a sudden attack of appendicitis, something he was eager to get rid of. No wonder Edward made excuses of being busy with work and going abroad every year on Dylan's birthday. Because Dylan's birthday was only 3 days apart from their child's, he had to go there in advance to prepare, for fear of wronging his precious ones. Feeling disheartened, I exited the page and called my best friend abroad. "I'm willing to work as a jewelry appraiser in your company. See you in 3 days." In addition, I also asked her to do me some favors. After doing all this, I went to Dylan's room. It was still arranged as before, and there was still the unique milky scent of the child on the pillow. But Dylan would never come back. I found a wish bottle under the pillow, and inside was the birthday wish that the teacher helped Dylan write. The teacher said that a man should be brave. So this year I finally summoned up the courage to ask Dad for a birthday gift. But before I could finish, Dad left angrily. Actually, I just hoped that on my birthday, Dad could accompany me for an hour, or even 30 minutes, and I would be very, very happy. Tears welled up in my eyes. "Edward, is this what you call ambition?" After printing out the divorce agreement, I hugged Dylan's quilt, smelled his scent, and cried all night. The next day, despite his cleanliness, Edward personally helped me clean the mucus oozing from the wound, changed my dressing, and carefully wrapped it with gauze. The nanny looked envious, but my heart was like still water. When he saw my red and swollen eyes, he felt extremely sad. "Shirley, I know you miss Dylan. I miss him more than you do, but you have to take care of your own body. I've already lost my favorite child and can't afford to lose you. How about you rest at home today and let me handle Dylan's funeral? Hand it over to you. Hand it over to you. The murderer who killed his own son. Holding back the sarcasm in my heart, I said lightly, "No need. I have to see Dylan off on his last journey." When I arrived at the funeral site, from a distance, I saw Virginia and a young man supporting my mother-in-law, chatting intimately and making my mother-in-law smile happily. In such a solemn occasion, everyone else was dressed in black, but Virginia was wearing a red high-end luxury dress, and even that young man was in a dazzling red suit. Surprisingly, my mother-in-law seemed not to notice and held the two of them, her eyes full of affection, afraid that they would get hot. She even asked the servant beside her to hold an umbrella for them, as if they were her real daughter-in-law and grandson. When she saw me, Virginia curled the corner of her mouth and said sarcastically, "Auntie, I'm not hot. Shirley is here. It's so sunny. You'd better give the umbrella to her. After all, she's different from me. Her child is dead, and she's injured. She needs to be taken care of." Hearing this, my mother-in-law looked at me with a disgusted expression. "It's just a white-eyed wolf that died. What's the big deal? Who are you showing those red eyes to?" Pretending and not caring about the dignity of our Liu family at all. "Even Virginia and Devin are more sensible than you. They were afraid that I would be tired, so they rushed here as soon as they got off the plane and even gave me an expensive jade bracelet. They are much better than you." A heartless thing. My mother-in-law has always disliked me. She thought I wasn't worthy of Edward, and because I didn't have a child for more than a decade, she called me a hen that couldn't lay eggs. Later, when Dylan was born, she disliked that Dylan always stood up for me and thought he was taking sides against the family. A white-eyed wolf. In the past, Edward would defend me a few words, but now his eyes are all on Virginia, and his infatuated expression is as if she were a rare treasure. Virginia gave me a provocative smile without showing it and quickly supported my mother-in-law. "Auntie, you're old and can't get angry. If you don't mind, Devin will be your grandson from now on." My mother-in-law was overjoyed immediately and kept praising her for being sensible. Virginia led the young man up to me and greeted me with a smile. "Long time no see, Shirley. I'm really sorry. My son and I just came back from abroad and didn't have time to change our clothes." "You're so generous. You surely won't be angry, right? By the way, this is my son, Devin." Devin's face was somewhat similar to Edward's, about 5 or 6 parts alike. He glanced at me with disdain and said arrogantly, "Auntie, you're really ugly." After saying that, he skillfully stretched out his hand towards Edward. "Dad, didn't you say that you would give us gifts when Mom and I came back to China? My 18th birthday is the day after tomorrow. You only gave me 99 gifts last year. I want 100 this year." In the face of his humiliation towards me, Edward ignored it. He touched his head with a helpless and doting expression. "Got it." After saying that, he took out that longevity lock and put it on Devin, looking affectionate, as if he thought this wasn't enough. Edward snapped his fingers, and more than a dozen brightly colored sports cars drove up outside the funeral parlor. "Here, Dad knows you like bright colors. These are all for you." Virginia wrinkled her nose and hugged Edward's arm coquettishly. "Edward, what about mine? You can't just favor our son." Edward doted on her and hooked her nose. "Of course I won't forget you." After saying that, 2 people got out of each car, holding more than 30 sets of jewelry. The styles, designs, and materials were all different, and the only thing they had in common was that they were all extremely valuable. One of the sets was once worn by a noble concubine in a certain dynasty. Virginia happily kissed his side face and looked as charming as a young girl. "Wow, aren't these the items from the royal auction in Europe the day before yesterday? The cheapest set is worth over 100 million yuan. You bought them all for me. Edward, you still love our mother and son the most. But with all this expense, won't Shirley be angry?" Dylan's funeral was turned into an exhibition of luxury cars and jewelry by them, and I, wearing an old-fashioned black suit, without any makeup, with eyes as swollen as walnuts, compared with Virginia, who was wrapped in glamour and had a delicate makeup, looked even more like a ridiculous shrew. Not to mention the things Edward gave to Dylan in recent years, which were not even a fraction of the price of one of Devin's sports cars. It's ridiculous. Really ridiculous. Only then did Edward realize that I was still beside him, and he explained awkwardly, "Shirley, don't think too much. Virginia and Devin are used to living abroad. That was just a kind of etiquette just now. You also heard it just now. Mom has recognized Devin as her grandson, so it's normal for him to call me Dad. The child's birthday is coming up, and I just want to show my affection. That lock is also." Before he could finish speaking, Virginia stumbled and fell into his arms, saying feebly, "Edward, I feel so dizzy. I think I'm suffering from heat stroke. Edward immediately let go of me and quickly held her in his arms, asking with concern, "How could this happen? I built you a summer villa just to keep you from getting hot. It would have been so much better if you had just stayed and rested in the villa. Why did you have to be naughty and come to this lousy place? Come on, I'll carry you to rest." After saying that, regardless of the fact that Dylan's ashes hadn't been buried yet, he carried Virginia away. I endured the mockery of the people around me and picked up Dylan's urn alone. "It's okay, baby. If Dad doesn't love you, you still have Mom." But before I could put the urn into the grave, Devin knocked me down hard. The urn shattered into pieces, and Dylan's ashes spilled onto the ground. "Auntie, are you blind? Why did you bump into me? This outfit my dad bought for me is a limited edition. If it gets stained by that little ass's ashes, can you afford to compensate for it? What bad luck." Devin was not only not remorseful but actually reversed the truth. He took out a mineral water bottle with a smile, which was full of cigarette butts. "Auntie, don't say I'm not pitiful for you. Use this to hold your son's ashes." I didn't have time to question him and hoped that my mother-in-law would help me buy another urn. I wanted to protect Dylan's ashes. Unexpectedly, my mother-in-law frowned and said meanly, "What are you looking at? If you weren't useless, would the box have broken? I think the mineral water bottle is just fine. Don't even think about making me spend money on that white-eyed wolf. All right, bury it quickly. I still have to go back and play mahjong." Devin kicked me aside, had someone stuff the ashes into the dirty mineral water bottle, threw it into the grave, and had someone seal the grave. I clenched my fists in anger. How could they treat Dylan like this? I turned around and went to find Edward, only to see him and Virginia entangled in disheveled clothes in front of Dylan's mourning hall. "Edward, Ziheo is growing up, and it's inevitable that he'll feel lonely. I want to have another child for you." Edward hesitated a bit. "Virginia, over the years, to avoid being discovered by your husband, you've been secretly raising Devin outside. I've already made you and your son separated, and you've suffered a lot of grievances. How can I harm you again? And this is after all Dylan's mourning hall. We can't." Virginia reached out and touched him below, saying coquettishly, "Edward, I'm willing to endure any grievance for you. He's away from home all year round and won't find out. I've never done it in a mourning hall before. Don't you want to experience it? You've been tired these 2 days, and I'll take good care of you." The veins on Edward's forehead bulged, and he couldn't hold back any longer. He lowered his head and kissed her. The scene became more and more unbearable. I recorded all of this with trembling hands, turned around, ran out, and collapsed in front of Dylan's tombstone. I couldn't stop shivering all over. "Edward, Dylan's photo is hanging right above your heads. How dare you?" The crowd had already dispersed, and no one cared about me and my Dylan. As I threw Joss paper into the brazier, I quietly shed tears, feeling that these more than 10 years of marriage were just a joke. Suddenly, the brazier was kicked over, and sparks flew onto my hand, making me startle. Virginia suddenly appeared, smiling like a victor. "Shirley, isn't it exciting to watch me and Edward having sex in front of your son's spirit? No matter how much Joss paper you burn, your little short-lived son won't come back. Originally, if you had never been able to have a child, I wouldn't have bothered with you. But you actually dared to have a child with Edward. No one is going to take even a penny away from my son. The property of the Shin family belongs to our mother and son, and Edward loves me the most. To make me feel at ease, he was even willing to kill your son. Being a woman like you is really shameful. If I were you, I would just smash my head to death now." I couldn't bear it anymore and stood up. Just as I raised my hand, Virginia suddenly fell down the stone steps. Before I could react, a big hand pushed me down hard and caught Virginia. Edward held Virginia in his arms and looked up at me, roaring, "Shirley, are you crazy? Who told you to lay a hand on Virginia?" Before I could explain, Virginia said aggrievedly, "Edward, I just came to comfort Shirley, but she accused me of deliberately wearing a red dress to bring her bad luck, and she wanted to push me down to my death, making me be buried with Dylan. She also said that she would find a master to perform some magic, making Dylan turn into a fierce ghost to bite me to death. Woohoo! I'm also very sad that Dylan is gone. I rushed here as soon as I got off the plane. I was really worried about her and got confused. I didn't have time to change my clothes. Edward, you know that I'm timid. I'm really so scared. Woohoo!" Edward's face darkened, and he looked at me angrily. "It's your own bad luck that you encountered a mentally ill person, and you even implicated Dylan. Virginia was kind enough to comfort you out of fear that you would be sad and blame yourself, even if you don't appreciate it. Why did you push her? So what if she wore a red dress? Virginia said she didn't do it on purpose. Maybe Dylan liked bright colors. Why are you being so picky? You even used Dylan to curse Virginia. You won't even let him rest in peace after he's dead. Is this what a heartless mother like you does? Did I implicate Dylan? Am I being picky? Am I heartless? I pointed at Dylan's tombstone with tears in my eyes and shouted, Edward, if you think I'm heartless, then do you have a clear conscience? Do you dare to tell Dylan in front of his tombstone why he died? What kind of surgery did you ask the doctor to perform on his mother? Edward frowned and said, What are you shouting about? Of course, it's because you didn't protect Dylan well that he died a tragic death. As for that surgery, is there something wrong with me asking the doctor to save your life? Surely, I think you really should go and have your head checked. Stop pretending to be crazy here and quickly apologize to Virginia. Virginia wrapped her arms around his neck and pretended to be weak. Forget it, Edward, although Shirley wanted to harm me. After all, she's lost her child. Let's be magnanimous. My foot hurts so much. I think I sprained it just now. Can you carry me to the hospital? Please. Edward gave me a look of extreme disappointment and turned away without hesitation. Virginia looked up and silently mouthed at me with contempt and provocation. Useless. Looking at their backs, I knew that it was completely over between Edward and me. I bought another urn, asked the staff at the cemetery to help me take out Dylan's ashes, carefully put them in, and then left with it in my arms. My Dylan doesn't care about such a ridiculous funeral. My Dylan doesn't need such a heartless father either. When I got home, I gave the nanny a long vacation, and Edward called. Shirley, have you arrived home? Don't worry. Virginia's foot is okay now. I was wrong today. I shouldn't have said those things to you when you were sad. I didn't mean it. But those stone steps were so high. What if Virginia had fallen and something had happened to her? What would Devin do? We don't have a child anymore. And I just can't bear to see Devin lose his mother again. Devin is just a child. After all, I'm his godfather. And I'm also friends with Virginia. It's only right that I take care of them. Don't think too much about it, I said lightly. I know. It doesn't matter. Take good care of them. My wife is so considerate. Didn't Dylan always want to see the sea? I've booked the plane tickets. We'll leave the day after tomorrow to take you to relax. Although Dylan is gone, as parents, we should also fulfill the child's wish. Just wait for me to come back and pick you up obediently. Throughout the whole night, Virginia kept sending me WeChat messages to compensate her and to make Devin happy. Edward directly bought a private jet and took them to Las Vegas for shopping overnight. And my Dylan couldn't even get his father to accompany him to see the sea once in 3 years. Shirley, what can you compare with me? Since I can't compare, then I won't compare. The next day, Edward still didn't come back, and Virginia sent me more and more photos and videos, even including videos of her and Edward having sex with different tools. I didn't reply. I just packed up all my things and Dylan's things and donated them. In the afternoon of the third day, Edward finally thought of me and sent a message. Shirley, I'm sorry. There's something going on at the company. I'll ask my assistant to pick you up and take you to the airport first. I'll rush there right away. But he didn't know that Virginia had just sent me another video a minute ago. Today is Devin's birthday, and Edward has booked the most luxurious hotel to hold his coming-of-age ceremony. In the picture, he was putting a pink diamond necklace as big as a pigeon's egg around Virginia's neck and gently kissing her forehead. Virginia, thank you for giving birth to such a wonderful son for me. You're the hero of our family. I didn't reply. After blocking both him and Virginia, I put the divorce agreement and a USB drive into a file bag and sent it to the hotel by courier. After leaving Dylan's wish note on the table, I picked up Dylan's ashes, took one last look at this home where I had lived for more than 10 years, and resolutely went out and headed for the airport. Goodbye, Edward. At the hotel scene, Edward had just announced the news that he was going to make Devin his heir and was about to sign the share transfer agreement. Suddenly, the assistant ran in with a file bag, his face as white as a sheet. He leaned over to Edward's ear and said tremblingly, Mr. Edward, something terrible has happened. Madam has just taken a flight abroad, and that flight crashed. The pen in Edward's hand fell to the ground, and he stared blankly at the assistant, not understanding what he meant for a moment. Virginia quickly picked up the pen and stuffed it into Edward's hand. Edward, what's wrong? Sign quickly. All the guests are watching. But Edward pushed her away, pulled the assistant aside, and frowned as he asked, What nonsense are you talking? Shirley and I agreed to go out and see the sea. I haven't even arrived yet. How could she get on the plane alone? And he hadn't told Aji that they were going abroad either. The assistant quickly handed him the file bag in his hand. Mr. Edward, this was just delivered by courier. It's from Madam for you. Please take a look. Edward quickly opened the bag and found that it contained a signed divorce agreement and a USB drive. He stared at the column of the woman's name in disbelief. Was Shirley going to divorce him? Edward subconsciously took out his phone and found that Shirley hadn't replied to his messages from just now until now. In their 18 years of marriage, from a young and inexperienced teenager to a middle-aged man in his prime, Shirley almost always replied to his messages instantly year after year. This was the first time such a situation had occurred. Edward felt a little uneasy and quickly sent messages to Shirley. Shirley, where are you? Why aren't you replying to me? Shirley, what's going on with the divorce agreement? It's not April Fool's Day today. Don't play such a joke. The next second, he stared with wide eyes at the red exclamation mark. Shirley had actually blocked him. When he called, there was only a reminder that the phone was turned off. She had probably blocked him too. But why? Edward felt an unprecedented panic in his heart and turned to leave. But Virginia grabbed him. Edward, Devon's coming-of-age ceremony isn't over yet. Didn't you say you were going to hand over the company to him today? Where are you going? Shirley's plane crashed, and I have to go and see. Virginia caught a glimpse of the divorce agreement and sneered. Shirley wants to divorce you. I really underestimated her scheming. Isn't she just jealous that you protected me that day? She actually threatened you with faking her death and divorce. Doesn't she just want you to go and accompany her? Her methods are really despicable. Today is Devon's coming-of-age ceremony. Just because her own son died, does she have to bring bad luck to our Devon? Devon took the USB drive and said with disdain, Dad, I've dealt with this kind of woman a lot. On the surface, they play the game of breaking up or pretending to commit suicide. Then they go and post sad messages on their moments. And they have to attach some selfies with tears. It's all just to keep a man's heart. Playing hard to get. Ugly people always make a fuss. Virginia laughed. That's right. Our Devon is so smart. He can see through a green tea bitch at a glance. Looking at the mother and son laughing together, Edward frowned. This was already the second time Devon had humiliated Shirley. He had originally thought that the child was young and spoke bluntly. But Virginia was an adult, wasn't she? Not only did she not teach the child the correct values, but she also abetted him. Was this what a mother should be like? Shirley would never be like this. Dylan had been educated to be very polite. Edward suddenly felt very disgusted in his heart. Looking at Virginia again, he no longer had the feeling of being attracted to her as before. Just as he was about to speak, Devon, as if to prove that what he said was right, played the content of the USB drive on the large screen at the scene. There was only one audio recording in it. When he heard that voice, Edward's face instantly turned pale. I confess everything. It was Mr. Edward who gave me 5 million yuan and instructed me to pretend to be mentally ill and stab Miss Shirley and her son. It would be best to directly stab that little brat to death because he wanted to clear the obstacles for his and Virginia's soon-to-be adult child. When I went to ask him for the money, I also heard him ask the doctor to remove Miss Shirley's uterus. Edward's head was buzzing. He pushed aside Devon, who was standing there in a daze, and eagerly looked at the date of the audio recording. 3 days ago. Edward staggered back 2 steps. So, Shirley had known everything so early. So, she had already planned to leave him. He had thought he had kept it a perfect secret. Edward could hardly imagine how desperate Shirley must have felt at the moment she learned the truth. Why had things turned out like this? This was completely different from what he had originally expected. He had originally thought that after giving the company to Devon to make up for his debt to Virginia and her son, he would spend the rest of his life properly by Shirley's side. There was an uproar in the room. After the guests were shocked, they all showed looks of disdain. I knew it. Why would President Liu of the Liu Corporation give the company to an outsider for no reason? It turns out that's his illegitimate son. Just for a lowly mistress and an illegitimate son, he actually killed the son of his original wife. I don't believe Virginia didn't know about it. How shameless. I heard that she went to someone else's child's funeral with her son, wearing all red clothes, and she had the nerve to say she didn't have time to change. Does she think others are fools? How long would it take to buy a black outfit on the street? She was just deliberately provoking Shirley. She got the benefits and still pretended to be innocent. She's not afraid of retribution. The voices grew louder and louder, and Virginia's face turned paler and paler. She looked at Edward with tears in her eyes. Edward, they're slandering me. Please speak up for me. But Edward, who had always protected her in the past, seemed to have lost his soul at this moment. He didn't even look at her and turned to walk outside. He kept muttering to himself, Shirley won't leave me. She won't be in any danger. I have to go find her. However, his mother suddenly appeared and blocked his way. His mother looked at him with dissatisfaction. Where are you going? I've already heard. That unlucky woman is dead. I've always disliked that shabby and useless woman anyway. Let her die. Just right. Zihao is your biological son, and I like him very much. You might as well just marry Virginia and her son into the family. Edward was taken aback. Mom, what are you talking about? Virginia has her own husband. Why should I marry her? Didn't Virginia tell you? She's actually not married at all. She had her own difficulties when she went abroad. After all these years, she has raised such a big son for you. Don't worry about the past anymore. Marry her into the family. Virginia shyly took Edward's hand. Edward, I deserve to endure any grievance for you. Shirley doesn't deserve you. She can't even give you a child. The two of us are the most suitable. Since she's dead, then we can. Unexpectedly, Edward shook off her hand and looked at her coldly. Grievance? What grievance have you endured? Over the years, I've spent several times more time with you than Shirley. The gifts I gave you and the money I gave you are things that Shirley has never received. But she has never complained even once. Because of you, Shirley lost her child and can no longer have children. If you're not even guilty, how dare you say she doesn't deserve me? The one who is truly wronged is Shirley. What grievance do you have? Virginia, what happened between you and me is in the past. Whether you're married or not has nothing to do with me. Because I have a clear conscience towards you. Shirley is my wife. And she won't die. Also, I never knew that you actually raised Devon into such a spoiled and arrogant second-generation rich kid. The matter of the share transfer is off. Don't let me hear you say anything bad about Shirley again. Otherwise, don't blame me for turning against you without mercy. He then looked at his mother and threatened faintly. Mom, you're getting old. Just play your mahjong well and don't meddle in my affairs. Unless you want to experience the taste of only receiving the minimum alimony stipulated by the state every month. After saying that, Edward didn't look at them again and rushed out of the hotel without looking back. Edward rushed home like a madman. But when he saw the scene in front of him, he collapsed to the ground. Shirley had cleaned up all her things and Dylan's things, not leaving him even a single thought. Only a small piece of paper was left on the table, with Dylan's birthday wish written on it. Edward still remembered that day when Dylan said to him timidly, Dad, can I have a birthday gift this year? At that time, his heart was only filled with Virginia and Devon. He thought that at such a young age, Dylan had such great ambition and was very angry. He didn't even listen to the rest of the child's words and left directly. It turned out that Dylan's wish was actually so simple and humble. He also never knew that the child actually loved him so much, even though he had never given him a smile. In contrast, all Devon did was keep asking him for money and cars, and there was nothing else. Edward hung his head dejectedly and gave himself a hard slap. What on earth had he done? The confident and capable elite in the business world now looked so embarrassed. The assistant looked at him with pity and said in a low voice, Mr. Edward, I just asked. The rescue team hasn't found Madam yet. Falling into the sea from such a high place and after such a long time. Madam might. Before he could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Edward with red eyes. It's impossible. Shirley won't die. We agreed to be together for a lifetime. She won't leave me alone. But, was it really impossible? Edward remembered that when they had just gotten married, the company was in crisis. Partners one after another terminated their contracts, and he was so busy that he almost lived in the company. Shirley ran around everywhere to help him maintain the partnership with the partners, but she was often turned away. In the cold winter, she stood outside the other party's door all night holding a gift box until the other party was willing to see her. She managed to keep that partner, but she fainted on the way back and thus developed a chronic illness, making it very difficult for her to get pregnant. When Edward rushed to the hospital after receiving the news and saw Shirley's pale little face, he felt extremely guilty and cried, saying sorry to her. But Shirley hugged him and smiled. What's this? We're husband and wife, and we should advance and retreat together. But Edward, if one day you betray me, then I will leave you completely and never look back. At that time, he already knew about Devon's existence and was extremely scared in his heart. He swore to keep this matter a secret for a lifetime. But Shirley eventually found out. The assistant paused and placed the laptop in his hand in front of Edward. Mr. Edward, the cemetery called and said that Madam took away the young master's ashes the day before yesterday. I was curious, so I checked some things by the way. I think you need to take a look. So Edward saw everything that happened on the day of Dylan's funeral. His heart ached so much that he couldn't breathe. He didn't know that Shirley had suffered so much grievance. And when she needed him the most, he was actually with Virginia, and was even seen by Shirley. After that, he believed Virginia's one-sided story and bullied Shirley together with her. At the same time, the assistant followed the clues and found the chat records between Virginia and Shirley. After reading them, Edward was silent for a long time, but he seemed to have aged 10 years. After a while, he said in a hoarse voice, "Go and issue a statement to sever the mother-son relationship between me and my mother, and that Devon has no connection with the Liu family at all. Sue anyone who dares to spread rumors. From now on, stop the monthly financial support to Virginia and her son. At the same time, find someone to take back all the assets that were previously given to them. If Virginia refuses to return them, use extreme measures. It doesn't matter if she's maimed or dead. She forced Shirley to leave me, and she has to pay the price." The assistant was shocked. In this way, Devon would become a bastard without a father. After the assistant left, the doctor suddenly called. "Mr. Edward, how is Madam's wound recovering? Remember to go to the hospital for regular checkups." "She won't go." "What?" Edward's voice choked. Shirley knew the truth about Dylan's death and that surgery. "She wanted to leave me, but the plane crashed." The doctor was silent for a while and then sighed. "Mr. Edward, there's something I haven't told you. When we were operating on Madam that day, the corner of her mouth kept bleeding. When I checked, I found that her tooth was broken. I originally thought it was done by that person, but listening to what you said, she should be immune to anesthesia and didn't want you to find out that she heard everything. She actually bit it off herself. I can't imagine how much pain she was in at that time." Edward covered his face in pain. "Stop. Please stop. Please don't remind me again how beastly I am and how important something I've lost." But the doctor refused to stop. "Mr. Edward, if the rescue team still doesn't have any news, it can also be considered a good thing. I think someone as strong as Madam won't die so easily, but I'm also sure that whether she's dead or alive, she won't forgive you." After hanging up the phone, Edward seemed to have completely lost his soul, but tears kept welling up in his eyes. After a while, he stared blankly out the window and murmured, "Yes, Shirley, someone as strong as you. How could you die so easily? But, where are you?" At that time, I had already landed in Country Y and started working in my best friend's company. My best friend's family had always been engaged in underground industries. In the past 2 years, they wanted to clean up their image and established a jewelry company. She was overjoyed when she heard that I was willing to come and help. The plane crash was something I asked her to help arrange. At the same time, I also asked her to use her influence in the country to help me find the attacker that day and record the audio. After I gave Dylan a proper burial, I began to devote all my energy to work. Only in this way could I forget everything in the past as soon as possible. I didn't deliberately pay attention to the news from my home country, but the hot search was too eye-catching. Edward had severed the relationship with his mother, only giving the minimum standard of alimony every month and refusing his mother's request to meet. He had retrieved everything he had given to Virginia and firmly denied that Devon was his son. Devon had been spoiled, and his living conditions suddenly dropped. He actually committed a burglary and was sent to prison. The reason why Virginia gave birth to Devon in the first place was to continuously extort money from Edward. Now that her dream had been shattered, she hadn't worked for many years and had no skills. Without Edward as an economic source, she actually chose to sell her body. Unfortunately, she was no longer young, and her leg was broken by the debt collectors. Her income was very meager. Once, because she couldn't reach an agreement on the price with a customer and had a dispute, she was hacked to death in bed. In addition to jewelry appraisal, I also developed a strong interest in jewelry design. My best friend fully supported my choice and took the initiative to introduce me to several big shots in the jewelry design industry to teach me jewelry design. In less than a month, I designed a set of necklaces with the theme of maternal love and named it Angel. In every mother's heart, their child is an angel. My best friend took the angel I designed to participate in the jewelry exhibition. We originally thought that no one would buy it, but on this day, I received the news that someone had bought the angel at 10 times the price and just wanted to meet the designer. That's how I saw Edward again. We hadn't seen each other for only half a year, but he had aged so much. There were even some silver threads mixed in his originally black hair. When I saw him, I subconsciously frowned and turned to leave. Shirley, wait. I turned my head and looked at him indifferently. Edward, you should know that the person I least want to see in my life is you. Edward's eyes showed disappointment, and he nodded awkwardly. I understand. I saw Dylan's birthday wish, and I know that I've made an unforgivable mistake. I just wanted to see you. As long as I can confirm that you're still alive, I'll be satisfied. Shirley, how are you doing? I sneered sarcastically. Without Mr. Edward by my side to harm me, of course I'm doing well. If you never show up again, I'll be even better. Edward's face turned pale, and he couldn't say anything for a long time. After a moment, he smiled bitterly. I should have known you would say that, but I'm always unwilling. I always thought I still had a chance. But when I saw the look in your eyes, I understood that I've lost you forever. The doctor looked at my abdomen, which was stabbed and covered in blood, and sighed. I'm sorry for you in this life, and I'm sorry for our Dylan. I'll give you and your son an explanation. In the future, please fly freely, and I'll always bless you. After saying that, he turned around and staggered away. Only a wet spot was left where he had just stood. A week later, a huge sum of money was transferred into my account. At the same time, the news of Edward's surrender made it to the domestic hot search, and the person who pretended to be mentally ill was also sent to prison along with him. A few days later, the news of Edward's suicide in prison came. When he died, he was holding the angel necklace tightly in his hand. No one knew how he managed to bring the necklace in, but that no longer mattered. When I received the news, I gently stroked Dylan's photo. My angel could finally rest in peace. The end.